Hey, hi there. Welcome to the second devlog of Treasure Drift, a high-speed racing game I've been developing for over 2 years now, and we just released the Steam page, so don't forget to wishlist it. The last episode was only an introduction to what comes now, because in this episode we're gonna improve the graphics, add some minor tweaks, and make the game really feel good. So, let's get started. At the point of the last devlog we had some pretty good graphics going. But let's improve that and make it look realistic and have almost Forza graphics. First of all, let's get the color grading right, because we don't want something that doesn't look realistic, right? Let's first of all remove the color grading completely and search for some alternatives to make it look better. So after using about 80 different lookup textures, this doesn't work out. So let's find something that Unity has made that can get us closer to that. So there is this Unity template made in cooperation with some car company, but we're not gonna steal that all. We're just gonna find what makes the scene look good and what makes the car look realistic. After some research, I found out I don't need color grading at all. All I need is to change some values in the directional light, or what I call it, the sun. I also added in a sun flare, which makes this really cool effect when you look into the sun. I also changed the fog settings a bit, so it's not that visible. This just looks way more cinematic. The graphics look really good now, but we still need somewhere to drive on. And what's the best way to drive? Correct, it's downhill. So let's add a downhill passage onto the mountain we added in the last episode. The theme of the map is gonna be an alpine environment, so I want to really capture that feeling. So, a good downhill passage has a lot of hairpins, so let's add them so you can drift through them. Now we got somewhere to drive on, but I really hate how some parts of the road just feel very generated. So let's add some variation by adding in a few bridges where the road is higher than it's supposed to be. And since we're already working on the road, let's also add a tunnel and add some reverb to it. The reverb just makes it feel more believable and it's really easy to set up. The road shader is also still in development, but it got some major upgrades. I found this really nice asset on the asset store, which unfortunately doesn't work for HDIP, so I contacted the developer via email, but he never responded. And since I'm really bad with shaders, I let somebody else do the work for me. He's also making a racing game, but for a whole different platform. So we exchange a lot of ideas and work we've done. It's still not fully finished, but let's go on to the exhaust flame. So I just spent a whole day just redoing the whole exhaust flame because it looked really cartoonish and it's not the effect I'm going for. I also tried around with the visual effect graph, but it didn't bring me anywhere, so I went back to the Unity particle system. Then I called a few friends and made it more convincing to the player. The last thing I needed to do is redo the exhaust flame positioning for every single car and every single exhaust flame, which took me around 2 days. With the exhaust flame I was really orienting myself to Assetto Corsa, and what does Assetto Corsa have too? Correct, that's really good tire smoke. And me being me, I was trying to recreate that effect. The original tire smoke was good and all, but I want the tire smoke to wrap around the tire, which is not easy to do. So instead of really wrapping the smoke around the tire, I just faked it. How did I do that? Well, I found out you can actually use the velocity and map it over the lifetime with curves in order to make it go around in a circle. Then I also added the trail of the particles, and after positioning the particles around the tire, everything looked way better than before. I also had a really funny idea which you can decide on. And that idea is to add the Batmobile. I just think it would be a really funny addition to the game. You can decide in the comments down below. In the last episode I got some really good feedback from you guys. So I improved the RPM UI. I changed the color of the arrow to red and removed the cutout mask I coded. Not only did I give the RPM UI a new design, but I also made it procedural. This way the UI actually adapts to what car you're driving. So for example, if you have a car with around 8000 RPM, the UI will also display 8000 RPM at maximum, and the red line zone will actually adapt to that. Not only did this clean up my project because I don't need to redesign the UI for each RPM, but it also made the UI much more versatile. And one person actually gave some really good feedback what I can do in order to improve my object pooling system. That comment suggested removing the regions and instead using a radius around the player and spawning the objects inside of that radius. So I redid the whole object pooling system based off that comment. Not only did this clean up some clutter in the scene, but it also helped with removing bugs in the future. I also spent some time thinking about the story and where the map actually is set. My first thought was actually to make the region look like Austria, but I changed that. I ended up watching some YouTube and ended up on drone footage of Colorado. Colorado has some big mountains, dense forests and some lakes, and that was essentially what I was searching for. This would not only make for a good environment, but it would also help to provide some variety to my game. And I also wanted to thank you guys for the quantity and quality of feedback I've gotten over the last days. And if you don't want to wait for every single upload and you want some insight into the development process of my game, you can join the Discord down in the description. That's all I have for you today. See you in the next devlog. Don't forget to wishlist the game on Steam and don't forget to subscribe.